Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Podcast Live. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Okay, before we start, I need to share something embarrassing.
Oh?
Last week, I spent 45 minutes trying to decide what to have for dinner. 45 minutes for dinner.
That is peak overthinking.
Every option felt wrong. What if I'm not in the mood after I order? What if I regret not choosing the other thing? What if, what if, what if?
And what did you end up having?
Toast. I had toast because I was too exhausted from deciding to actually cook.
This is exactly what we're talking about today. Overthinking. The mental habit that eats your time, drains your energy, and somehow manages to make you feel worse about absolutely everything.
And we're going to talk about why we do it, how to recognize your particular overthinking style, and most importantly, how to actually stop.
Let's go. So first, why do we overthink? Because I think understanding the why is actually the first step to changing the habit.
Okay, so here's the thing about overthinking. Your brain is trying to protect you. It's not broken. It's doing exactly what it evolved to do.
Which is?
Anticipate threats. Prepare for danger. Make sure you're not caught off guard. For most of human history, this was incredibly useful. If you heard a strange sound in the forest, the person who spent 10 minutes analyzing every possible scenario, is it a predator, which direction, how do I escape, was more likely to survive than the person who didn't think about it.
So overthinking is essentially an overactive threat detection system.
Exactly. The problem is that our brains haven't fully updated to modern life. The same system that was designed to protect us from predators is now running analysis on, was my tone in that email too aggressive? And what did she mean when she said she was fine?
Real threats versus perceived threats.
And our nervous system can't always tell the difference. The anxiety you feel before a difficult conversation can trigger the same stress response as actual physical danger.
Which explains why it feels so exhausting. You've been running on adrenaline all day, not because anything bad happened, but because your brain was rehearsing all the things that could go wrong.
Exactly. And there's another layer, uncertainty. Humans have a very low tolerance for not knowing. Overthinking often kicks in as an attempt to mentally resolve uncertainty, even though most of the time you can't.
So you keep cycling through the same possibilities, hoping that one more loop will somehow produce a new answer.
But it never does, because the information you need to resolve the uncertainty doesn't exist yet, or it exists outside your head.
The thinking loop feels productive, but it's actually just anxiety in disguise.
So I want to talk about the different kinds of overthinkers because the strategies that work best depend a bit on your specific pattern. I see three main types.
Walk us through them.
Type 1, the ruminator. This person replays the past. They go over conversations, decisions, and events looking for where things went wrong, what they should have said differently, what they could have done better.
Hindsight on overdrive.
Right. They have a mental highlight reel of every embarrassing or regrettable moment, and they watch it on repeat.
Type 2.
The catastrophizer. This person projects into the future, and the future is always terrible. One missed call from their boss becomes, I'm probably getting fired. A headache becomes, what if it's something serious? A friend who doesn't text back immediately becomes, they must be upset with me.
Connecting dots that aren't connected.
And the mind jumps from A to Z, skipping every reasonable middle step, and the Z is always catastrophic.
And type 3.
The analyst. This one is subtle because it looks most like productivity. The analyst overthinks decisions. They research everything exhaustively, make endless pros and cons lists, and still can't commit because there might be a better option they haven't found yet.
Analysis paralysis.
Exactly. They mistake more thinking for better thinking. But after a certain point, more information actually increases confusion rather than reducing it.
Which type do you think is most common?
Most chronic overthinkers are a blend of all three, but usually one dominates. The catastrophizer is probably the most common in high-stress environments.
And knowing your type helps because it tells you which direction your spirals tend to go. Backwards into the past, forwards into disaster, or sideways into infinite research. Okay, strategies. What actually works?
Strategy 1. The 5-year test. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? For most things you're overthinking, the answer is no.
And if the answer is yes?
Then ask, is there something I can do about it right now? If yes, do it. If no, you have to let it sit. Thinking about it more won't change the outcome.
So the test either gives you a task or gives you permission to let go.
Exactly. Strategy 2. Schedule your worry. This sounds strange, but it works. Instead of letting anxiety interrupt your whole day, you give it a dedicated slot. I'm going to think about this problem at 4 p.m. for 15 minutes. Until then, I'm not engaging with it.
And your brain actually respects that?
Surprisingly, yes. You're not suppressing the worry, you're postponing it. The thought comes up, you acknowledge it. I see you, I'll deal with you at 4. And then you redirect. It takes practice, but it gets easier.
Strategy 3.
Externalize it. Get it out of your head. Write it down. Talk it out with a friend. The simple act of putting your thoughts into words on paper or out loud gives your brain something to work with that isn't an endless internal loop.
It breaks the echo chamber.
Right. Inside your head, a fear can grow to fill all available space. When you write it down and look at it on paper, it suddenly seems more manageable. You can see it for what it actually is.
Strategy 4. Action as the antidote. For many overthinkers, the best way to stop spinning is to do something, anything, in the direction of the problem.
Send the email, make the call, book the appointment. Even a tiny action disrupts the overthinking loop because you've shifted from passive rehearsal to active engagement.
Done is better than perfect isn't just a productivity slogan, it's anti-overthinking medicine.
Strategy 5. Question the narrative. When your brain presents a worst-case story, treat it as a hypothesis, not a fact. Ask, what evidence do I have that this is true? Is there another explanation? What would I tell a friend who thought this way?
That last question is powerful. We're usually much more compassionate toward our friends than toward ourselves.
If your best friend said, I think everyone at the party was judging me, you'd say, that's not true. People were focused on themselves. But when your own brain says it, you believe it completely.
Apply the same logic to yourself that you'd apply to someone you love.
Okay, a special section for the 3 a.m. situation, because this is when overthinking is at its absolute worst.
You wake up at 3 a.m. and your brain immediately launches into its greatest hits collection of everything you're worried about.
Why does this happen at night?
During the day, you have tasks, conversations, distractions. Your prefrontal cortex is busy managing your life. At night, the distractions disappear. The thoughts that you've been avoiding all day finally have the space to surface.
And at night, your emotional regulation is lower. You're tired. Your ability to reality check your own thoughts is reduced. Everything feels more catastrophic at 3 a.m. than it will at 10 a.m.
So what do you do?
First, don't fight it. Fighting the thoughts at 3 a.m. just makes them louder. Instead, acknowledge them. My brain is working through something right now. That's okay.
Second, don't try to solve anything at 3 a.m. Your brain is not equipped for complex problem solving when you're half asleep and emotionally flooded. Whatever decision or situation is spinning in your head, it will not be solved tonight. Tell yourself that explicitly.
Third, focus on your body instead of your thoughts. Deep, slow breathing. Feel the weight of your body in the bed. Notice the temperature of the air. Physical sensations pull your attention away from the mental spiral.
Fourth, write it down. Keep a notebook by your bed. I'm worried about the meeting tomorrow. I'll prepare for it in the morning. Just the act of writing it down can signal to your brain that it doesn't need to keep running the loop.
Because your brain loops through the same worry, partly to make sure you don't forget it. Writing it down says, I've got it. You can stop now.
That's such a useful reframe.
Key phrases from today. My brain is trying to protect me, but this isn't an actual threat. Will this matter in 5 years? I'll think about this at a specific time. What evidence do I have that this is true?
And done is better than perfect. I'll solve this tomorrow when I have more capacity.
This week's challenge. Identify your overthinking type. Ruminator, catastrophizer, or analyst. And this week, when you catch yourself in a spiral, try just one of the strategies we talked about.
You don't need to fix overthinking all at once. Just interrupt the loop once. That's enough for this week.
Thank you so much for listening today. I already feel calmer just having talked about this.
Subscribe to English Podcast Live for new episodes every week. And leave us a comment. Which type of overthinker are you?
See you next week.
Take care. Bye.